I want to end just this with Pete Davidson. I started with celebrities. I want to end with a celebrity. There's Pete Davidson, the comedian from Saturday Night Live, picking on people for trying to keep their businesses open. This is cut 6.
I saw the protest. People were outside the bar shouting about freedom, taunting the cops, chanting that they should arrest the governor. But it's Staten Island, so I assumed that it was just like a typical last call.
And are you against these protests?
I mean, kind of, but I'm also just happy I'm no longer the first thing people think of when they say, what's the worst thing about Staten Island?
I take it that you found these protests frustrating.
Yeah, man, they're making us look like babies. You know, it's bad when even people in Boston are like, drink at home, you queers.
So, there's a guy at work making good money, making fun of working class people for not being able to go to work. Pete Davidson is, by his own admission, he's a mentally ill guy. I mean, if you watch his comedy, it's not funny. If you watch his stand-up, it's not funny. It's actually the ranting of a guy with a mental disorder. And I will stand by that. He himself has just said he's got a mental disorder, so I'm not saying anything that's a secret. So why is he even talking to us about this? But the point is, it's, again, these sequestered people living in this bubble world that is created by the media. They live inside the media. They can do their work at home, on their computers, and they're making fun of people who are really struggling, going broke. For what? For what? There is no evidence, as far as I can see, there's no evidence that anything these people have done has had one single effect on what is, after all, a disease. Get the vaccine out. People should take care. We should all be aware that we have to save the Klavan, because if I'm not here, you're all existing in my imagination. When I go, you go with me. So you don't want that to happen. But still, it's just a little bit of common sense and sanity and truth-telling would go a long way in a community, in a country that is suffering from no real crisis except the crisis of governorship, of government, and the crisis of the media. Those are the crises we're in. And here, again, because of the left's complete seclusion within their own media, because of the arrogance and insularity of their governors, the crisis that we have is the lockdown. The crisis that we have is the destruction of the economy, the destruction of people's lives, without any evidence that has done a single thing to help mitigate this virus. The idea that there were going to be 15 days to slow the spread so that hospitals could take care of it didn't do anything. They never opened up again. They kept us under lockdown as long as they could until it went away in the summer. And now it's back for the winter, and it's going to be back for the winter until they get the vaccine out, which is what they should be thinking about. And people don't believe anything. And the crisis is a crisis of information. That is the only crisis that this country is really in right now, and the crisis of stupidity. It's basically it's the politicians and the press who are the crisis. They are the crisis. If we could solve that, we wouldn't have any other crises except maybe the debt. Alex Berenson is a guy who used to work for the New York Times and then became kind of persona non grata because he started saying, a lot of this information about the virus is not true. And he writes in the Wall Street Journal today, he says, since June, Amazon has twice tried to suppress self-published booklets I've written about COVID-19 and the response to it. These booklets don't contain conspiracy theories. Like the scientists who wrote the Great Barrington Declaration, I simply believe many measures to control the coronavirus have been damaging, counterproductive, and unsupported by science. Amazon is censoring his stuff. Google-owned YouTube censors even more aggressively. The company disclosed in October that it had pulled more than 200,000 videos about the epidemic, including one from Scott Atlas, a physician who was advising President Trump. Facebook has not only censored videos and attached warning labels or fact checks to news articles, but removed groups that oppose lockdowns and other restrictions. And the thing is, this is the problem. This is the problem, because who are they listening to? They're not, are they scientists? Is Jack Boots Dorsey over at Twitter a scientist? No. And is he listening to scientists? No. He's listening to reports about science, and he's listening to one set of scientists over another because those scientists fit in with his emotional connections. Just like we were talking about. This is what novelists know. What novelists know is that Jack Dorsey is making decisions emotionally that he thinks are scientific. And that's what we don't want to do. We do not want to join the gang. Here is Anthony Fauci. Anthony Fauci is just amazing. Who wrote about this? Joy Pullman in The Federalist. She wrote about the fact that Anthony Fauci criticized the British for for allowing the vaccine to be released so quickly. And then when he was challenged on that and he realized he had stepped on the National Health Service, he had stepped on socialized medicine, he said, no, it wasn't bad that they did it, but if we had done it, it would have been bad. That's basically what Fauci said. Here he is trying to kill Christmas. This is cut 9.
My concerns, John, are the same thing of the concerns that I had about Thanksgiving, only this may be even more compounded because it's a longer holiday. With Thanksgiving, it was just the end of the week and then you go back to work the next week. With Christmas, it starts several days before, it goes through Christmas, the week after Christmas, into New Year's and the New Year's holiday. I think it could be even more of a challenge than what we saw with Thanksgiving. So I hope that people realize that and understand that as difficult as this is, nobody wants to modify, if not essentially shut down their holiday season. But we are in a very critical time in this country right now. We've got to not walk away from the facts and the data. This is tough going for all of us.
Nobody ever says to this guy, why should anybody listen to you when you've changed your mind, when nobody's got a consistent message, when nobody is passing consistent rules, when the people who pass the rules break them? Nobody has said anything about this. Another guy on Trump's team, Admiral Giroir, I think his name is pronounced, probably Giroir, he comes out and he says, there actually is no reason to shut down outdoor dining. The science doesn't support that. This is cut 2.
What really breaks my heart is that I don't know of any data that says you need to shut down outdoor dining or outdoor bars. We really wanted to limit the indoor crowded places. The evidence clearly does not support limitations on things like outdoor dining, particularly that are spaced, outdoor bars. The evidence just isn't there. And remember, shutting down completely, particularly if you don't have evidence, can be counterproductive.
So, it's a little hard for us to know who to trust, especially with the media lying and censoring people. When the media lies and censors people, you immediately get your back up and you immediately say, well, if you're going to shut this guy down, maybe he's telling the truth. Why aren't you letting him speak? Why can't we compare information from people? And because the media is now a completely untrustworthy vehicle for information. The news media is completely untrustworthy. The New York Times is untrustworthy. You just heard me read from the New York Times Russian collusion story, a complete fantasy related as news. The networks are untrustworthy. You just heard CBS browbeating a public official for supporting Donald Trump when they never browbeat Democrats. They never said to Adam Schiff, hey, didn't you act kind of like Joseph McCarthy here? Nobody ever said that to him. Why should we trust anything they say? So now in Minnesota, where you have Uber-Sturmfuhrer Gretchen Whitmer shutting things down by pure fiat, as she marches back and forth on the balcony in her epaulettes, giving the salute. And here are some bar owners in Minnesota just saying, we're not going to do this. This is cut 3.
A governor cannot shut down businesses at a whim. He cannot pick and choose who's going to be a winner, who's essential and who's not essential, because that's basically what he did. He said that we are not essentials. All Americans are essential to me. And for him to pick and say that my business is not essential and that we have to shut down. I have 2 businesses. I have a gymnastics gym and a restaurant, and I have to shut down both businesses because he thinks we're not essential. And for me, I'm not going to back down to tyranny.
I'm sorry. I said that was Michigan. Those guys were from Minnesota, so we have to let Urban Sturmfuhrer, Gretchen Whitmer, off the hook, and she can go on matching back and forth on the balcony in her epaulettes. So I apologize for confusing Minnesota and Michigan. But the point remains, of course, is that it's random. It is hypocritical. They don't follow the rules.